Why do I always have to hit this? WizLab's data science group built content analysis service which accepts user-generated content as a string and returns a probable value for inappropriate content. Okay. Any values over a specific threshold must be reviewed by an employee of WizLabs. You need to store the user agreements data in the pipeline due for further processing. The volume of agreements is expected to be in the millions per hour. Where should you store the agreement data in the pipeline? Due for further processing. Well, the fact that they said that the volume of agreements is expected to be in the millions per hour sounds like Event Hub. Um, but they said, where should you store the agreement data in the pipeline due for further processing? Still sounds like Event Hub to me. Event Hub still requires a storage account. Let me make sure I'm still here. Oh, hey, Gambler. Event Hub still requires a storage account. Event Hub is a message bus. Or maybe a broker that still has publishers and consumers. So this Event Hub is still going to satisfy millions per hour. But Event Hub isn't really known as a storage. It's known for messaging. And the question says, where should you store the agreement data in the pipeline due for further processing? Now, what Event Hub will do is it will store data for, depending on the tier, the plan tier. I thought it was for I thought it was for 7 days. I'm not confident. I thought it was for 7 days. Um, you have Azure Storage Queue. That doesn't sound right. Azure Service Bus topic. No. Azure Service Bus topic that deals with like broadcasting an event or a message to a whole bunch of consumers, each of them receiving their own copy or clone of the original message. As your event grid topic. But even with Service Bus, these are messages, not necessarily events. Event grid would be event oriented. I'll say Azure Event Hub, but it's not. Azure Event Hub is not a data store. Well, you think about a hub, one can argue that a hub is like a central repository that your publishers would place um, on the platter and your consumers would take off the platter. So I would say Azure Event Hub. Survey says Azure Event Hub. Yep. A message is raw data produced by a service to be consumed or stored elsewhere. The message contains the data that triggered the message pipeline. The publisher of the message has an expectation about how the consumer handles the message, contract, blah, 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 blah. The data came. So the question is, how long does data live on Event Hub? Let me check my thing back. Azure event hub message retention. For hubs, for the premium tier and dedicated, it's 90 days. For standard, which is still production, is 7 days. Oh, I was right. I said 7 days. All right. Okay. So we can move on to the next question. A company has deployed a web app on Azure App Services, which sends an email at a particular event. Users report that anomaly detection emails can sometimes arrive several minutes after an anomaly is detected. How can you resolve this issue? So I'm going to read this again. A company has deployed a web app on Azure App Services, which sends an email at a particular event. Users report that anomaly detection emails can sometimes arrive several minutes after an anomaly is detected. How can you resolve this issue? A, ensure that the Azure function is using an app service plan. So this is suggesting that no, I'll just keep reading. B, set always on to false. C, ensure that the Azure function is set to use a consumption plan. Set always on to true would be D. Remember, the company has deployed a web app on Azure App Service. So it doesn't say anything about Azure functions. Did it? Users report that anomaly detection can arrive several minutes after anomaly is detected. So set always on to true would be the answer, so that if your Azure App Service is the platform that your Azure function is running on as the tier, yeah, I'm fairly confident it's D. The answer is D. Here's the issue. Here, the issue is that the Azure Web App is being stopped when it is not being used for this. You have to ensure that always on setting for the web app is implemented as true, as shown below. Okay. I guess I forgot. For some reason, I thought an app service was just continuously running. I didn't know that it like dies if it's sitting idle for a while. I'm gonna have to visit that. Always on by default. Apps are unloaded if they are idle for some period of time. This lets, oh shoot, where is Sean at? If continuous web jobs or web jobs triggered on cron, always on. Okay. Next question. The Wiz Labs policy service application must be able to scale on demand. Which Azure Application Insights data model should you use? The Wiz Labs policy service application must be able to scale on demand. Which Azure Application Insights data model should you use? If it needs to scale on demand, the first thing I think about is metric. Fairly confident it's metric. Survey says it's metric. Here are the questions asked us. Which Azure Application Insights data model should you use to scale web app services? You can use Application Insights metrics to scale web apps. And then they have an example. I'm not sure if I could zoom in on here. Maybe not. Yeah. So in this right pane over here, they have a threshold greater than. Okay. Where's Sean at? I thought I sent Sean the invitation. Mm, there is a plan to use Azure Cache for Redis to improve the performance of the Wiz Labs policy service application. Which of the following would you store in Azure Cache for Redis? Man, I always have to read every question like, at least 2 times. There is a plan to use Azure Cache for Redis to improve the performance of the Wiz Labs policy service application. Which of the following would you store in the Azure Cache for Redis? A. HTTP context.items. B. View state. C. Session state. D. Temp data. Like, they don't really give you any information on here. Um, mm, we can rule out A. HTTP context items. We can rule out D. Temp data. It's likely view state or session state. What does C mean? Oh, doesn't mean he's on here. Oh, okay. Hey, Sean.
Hey,
How long you been waiting?
I
How
gotta
long?
set my alarm like 6 minutes.
You've been on here for 6 minutes?
No, I said I've got to set my alarm for like 6 minutes sooner, so I get it on at 6:30.
Oh. You know Azure?
C. That was not Spanish for yes, but C. It's got to be session state. View state doesn't make sense. View state's like what you pass through the controller or whatever. Temp data doesn't make sense. It's got to be C. Session state's like, so you set a cookie. You're doing like web stuff. You set a cookie and you create a session or whatever, and then that cookie, when you receive it, has a session ID in it. You go to some sort of like session storage to grab
Yeah,
it.
isn't that
Whatever
like
the
a property
maximum
bag or
storage would be.
something that you would see? This is from like 15 years ago when I was messing around with ASP.NET. Wasn't there like a property bag that you would just stuff data into, and then you would pull it out on different pages that you would navigate to?
That's a view. Well, I mean, I guess you could call session state kind of like a property bag, but yeah, the session state's like so. How to describe this? So, like, let's say you log into a site
Shopping
and you've
carts
got a
and
bunch
other
of
user
like,
history type information.
yeah. Oh, yeah, it's got it listed there.
A typical solution is to use a cookie as a key to query the data in a
Yeah, that's
backend
what I just said.
database. Okay. Let me do one more question before I chat. You are developing an application that has a web and database tier. You have to store the database password as a secret in Azure Key Vault service. You have to use Azure CLI commands to create the Key Vault and also create a secret in the Key Vault. Which of the following command would you use to create the Key Vault? AZ key vault create. And that's to create the key vault. Survey says B. Okay, so I was right about that. And then, which of the following command would you use to create the secret in the key vault? AZ secret. I think it would be AZ. Yeah,
Might
maybe
be
it's AZ
D.
key vault secret set. Survey says. What do you think?
I would guess D if I was guessing.
Yeah. Okay, so that was too fast. Let's see something more challenging. You need
Yeah,
to implement.
Gambler, you're right.
What's that?
But Gambler's right. Those kind of questions are always things that, like, it's just a memory. Like, it's testing your ability to memorize things. It's not actually like a critical thinking type question, or like
Yeah.
you've
Well,
got
some
some
are. Some are
scenario.
deductive reasoning.
Yeah, but that one sucked. It was
Like,
just like, yeah, you just Google that, or you have a hotkey for it, or some shit like that. Anyway,
a company is implementing an order processing system. The orders are going to be published to an Azure Service Bus topic. The properties of the messages that would be sent are as follows. So if you have location, correlation ID, quantity, audited. The following subscriptions will be created. The requirement for each subscription is also given. Ladder orders, high priority orders, global orders, high orders, all orders. Those are the subscriptions. You need to implement the right filters for each of the subscriptions given above. Which of the following would you implement for the subscription high priority orders? And high priority orders is here. All the high priority orders should be sent. Okay. Um, and so this is saying that it's using, I thought it said Azure Service
so it's
Bus.
using the correlation ID as the priority for the order, um, which is weird. I don't know why you would use a column called correlation ID for the priority value of an order. That just doesn't make sense. Like a correlation ID is like you send out a message, and a correlation ID is something you can get back. It's not like a priority indicator, but whatever.
Well, if that's the case, here all high priority orders should be sent.
Yeah, so it's asking you what you're going to configure the filter on, and it's going to be
Well,
on that correlation ID, right? But
so that would mean B, given the requirements.
yeah, I don't know that I know the. Yeah, okay.
Um,
I guess it could say that if you have a correlation ID, you're requesting it to be priority because you're going to check on it or something very quickly.
you need to
Which
implement the right filters. Which of the following would you implement for the subscription? Yeah, because
I
true
mean, but
filter
I don't
doesn't make sense. No filter doesn't make sense. Well, I don't even think there's a no filter. Well, I mean there is. It's a lack of a
the lack
filter.
of filter. Yeah,
False filter doesn't make sense. The only other thing that would qualify would be a SQL filter, but they didn't provide any details. Yeah, B sounds good to me.
it'll probably be A, which is
But that
stupid.
would really require someone to actually read each of these properties. Like this, I wouldn't have read this unless you mentioned it.
Yeah,
I would have only gone right here. Um, and if you didn't mention like correlation ID is used for high priority whatever, I would have said SQL filter. But all right, survey says D.
yeah.
Since the priority is based on the correlation ID, it's better to use. This is kind of addictive, Sean. I'm sorry. Let's do one more.
What was the set of conditions?
Oh, you want me
Interesting.
to go back to the original question?
Oh, I was looking at I was trying to understand the answer.
I
Like
could go back.
why it's like the correlation ID contains what? Why? It said the correlation ID holds a set of conditions that are matched against one or more It's correlation.
Correlation filter holds a set of conditions that are matched against one or more
Commonly used to match against correlation ID, but
of an arriving messages user and system properties. The
okay.
common use is to match against the correlation ID property, but the application can also choose to match against content type, label, blah, 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 blah.
It's weird. Just doesn't seem quite right. But maybe I'm just not getting it.
Which of the following would you implement for the subscription global orders? Global order says here the order where the region is not USA should be sent. Um,
It was what are the values again at the top?
so it says which of the following would you implement for the subscription global orders?
I know, but how are they determining location? Is it, the region of a shipment? Okay, so yeah, it's not a true or false value. Well, yeah, so it'd have to be one or the other. I would guess it would be SQL filter.
Survey says a SQL filter. Here you can place a SQL filter based on the region. The Microsoft documentation mentions the following. SQL filter holds a SQL-like conditional expression that is evaluated in the broker against the arriving message, user-defined properties, and system properties. All system properties must be prefixed with sys dot in the conditional expression.
Oh, so this is like an actual filter you put inside of Azure Service Bus, and you specify SQL-like syntax to actually determine the routing.
Yeah, I think so. I've used filters for Beach Mobile. I don't think I use SQL filters. Which of the following would you implement for the subscription high orders? Orders where the quantity is greater than 1,000 should be sent. Wouldn't that also be SQL?
I don't know, because it's just I would guess a true filter.
And quantity is user-defined property that defines the order quantity, and SQL filter says that it operates on system properties and user-defined properties. Hence, quantity is a user-defined property, and the question is, hold up. The question is high orders,
But
orders where the
it's a
quantity
simple it's a
is
simple
greater than,
boolean
yeah,
though.
it has to be SQL.
I'm guessing a true filter. C.
You
You
say
can
C, I say A. Survey says A.
A. Damn. Okay. So you can't like just specify, hey, this is a true. Oh, I guess. So that true filter is there a true filter?
I
Trying to
think
understand what it's for.
I think true filter it applies to everything, as in like it's just inferred.
Well, I thought it would be
I
like,
don't think a true filter relies on the condition. Oh no.
so I was reading it as like, and I have no idea. This is a wild ass guess. Was just it's just you can like make that a very simple Boolean check versus like I guess you could have done that. No, you'd need multiple conditions with the region thing. Well, I suppose you could have said if not U.S. So yeah, it had to be SQL. Okay, derpy derp. Or not yar.
I think I'm going to take my third attempt at the certification on Monday.
President's Day? Are they going to be open on President's Day? I don't know. Testing services are just
I didn't know that was President's
for
Day.
profit.
Which of the following would you use to create the app service plan? Oh, this is a different question. All right. I guess I could talk to you now. Uh, oh, man. What's all these private chats?
C, 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 C. I was trying to tell you to get C, but also to
Oh,
recognize I was there.
mm, yeah, I'm kind of overwhelmed, man. I think I'm going to have like a mental breakdown if I fail this next e- certification exam. I don't know what else I could possibly do to prepare.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never
Actually, I
tried
do
for one of
know.
those.
I could buy another product. So I'm currently using Wiz Labs. I could buy their competitor product and start taking the practice exams on that and consistently score like over 90% and then take the test.
Yeah, unless Whiz Labs, or I mean, how close to the questions on Whiz Labs were the questions on the actual test? Like, do you feel like there's a strong enough correlation where that it's an accurate representation of what you're going to have to think about?
Uh, if memory serves me, I would say maybe a quarter of the questions or 25% of the questions that I've seen on this Wiz Labs testing material would somewhat kind of show up on the test, but everything is
Somewhat
really
kind of.
like so. This Swiss Labs, like these Swiss Labs questions, they touch on obviously a specific subject area, but it's really required you to go to the Azure documentation to consume everything about that subject area versus just trying to memorize the, the question
Hmm.
and the answer. And it's just so. I mean, it's only like between like 45 to 60 questions, but there's like a dozen different technologies that the test covers within Azure,
Hmm.
and each of them can easily cover. Each technology could easily cover like 200 questions, right? So it's like you have no clue what really to like focus on except to just do breadth and depth on everything.
Hmm. Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, unlike the bar exam, which I don't know how much the bar exam costs to take, or the board exam. I mean, this is only like $165, which is a lot when you're not working.
In
I think the
Minnesota,
board
it is
exam was like
$600
$700. What, the board exam?
for bar exam
Okay.
in Minnesota. It's different in every state.
Yeah, so I mean, I was practicing hands-on content delivery network with uh, with Blob Storage this morning. I have an interview today, later today for Azure, or I think it's called an integrate cloud integration architect. So I'm feeling pressure to know, feeling pressure to be a god. That's what I feel like. I feel like I have to be a god and know everything about everything when it comes to servers, a keyboard, security, computing, scaling, the eight fallacies of distributed computing, cap theorem. God damn, Sean. Like, I feel like we're doctors of computing. Like, and again, I know that that's blasphemy when it comes to people that actually work in law or work in like uh healthcare. I know I'm complaining, but like I'm overwhelmed, dude. Like I gotta know so much.
Yeah, or you could just learn HTML and CSS and still get jobs pretty much everywhere. Well, in React or Vue or
No, man. I gotta retire in like another 8 years. I gotta hurry up and get my 2 million. So
Yeah, you'll
in theory,
never.
I gotta be making 250,000 consistently. What's the math? That's yeah, that's in 10 years for $2 million, right? I gotta consistently make $250,000 so that I could retire in 10 years. I'm known to like hold down a contract for like 4 to 6 months and then go like 8 months before my next assignment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in some of the like big FANG companies or Silicon Valley companies, you could make that. I don't know.
Well, you can make that as a cloud architect, as a contractor or a consultant.
This would be like $200 an hour. Is that what it is?
I've made that a couple times in my past contracts.
Dang, that's expensive. I would never pay it. I guess it depends on how bad the need is. But
I mean, when you're working for like a Fortune 500 company, maybe even a Fortune 1000 company, they need that skill set.
yeah,
They
that's
do.
true. You have a good feeling about the
No.
interview? No, sorry, man.
About
I
the
keep
interview,
yelling.
uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be studying like I don't know if I should be practicing architectural diagrams. Like I'm overwhelmed, man. Like between interviewing for solution architect positions and taking for the third time this cloud certification, I don't know if my time is also should also be spent drawing diagrams in case I get asked questions during interviews and I gotta start drawing all these Azure icons and arrows and sequence diagrams and I don't know, man.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm just stressed right now.
You know what you should
Those
just do?
Indians, man, they be pumping out videos and blog posts. Like that entire country, man, they just pump out everything AWS and Azure. Do they not get overwhelmed? Is that not within their culture? I know I keep bringing this up, but whenever I'm doing research, like on the internet, and it's not by MSDN, but I'm relying on blogs or videos, it's like 80% Indians, and I'm just curious, like where they get the energy to like know all this stuff.
I don't know. Do you know Indian Americans have the highest median income of any like racial group?
Median income, what does that
Median,
mean?
median. It's like
Median,
yeah,
median.
yeah. It's like the
That's
middle.
like average, right?
No, it's not the average. So if you had like it's the middle. It's like if you took a plot point of all of them and then you took the exact center of it. Like that's their median. Whites are like number 6 on
That's
the
not
list.
different from average. I know that there's those two words mean two different things, or else they would be the same word. I just always struggle to figure out the difference between average and median.
So I think it's like this. If you have the values 1, 2, and 10,
Okay,
well, let's make it easier. 1, 3, and 10. The median is 3.
it would be
The
14 divided by
average,
3 would be the
well,
average.
yeah. Sorry, I guess I should have tried to target 12 being the number so I can divide it by 3. But yeah, it'd be 14 divided by 3 is the average, which isn't. What did I say? 3 was the middle number.
It would be
No,
4 point
yeah, 1,
something.
3, and yeah. So median is just the dead center number. It's the middle of all of the numbers.
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
And then I think there's
I
like
would
maybe
argue that they probably would be in the. I'm gonna try to use a fancy word. I would imagine they would be in the upper echelon. Did I butcher that word?
echelon.
Echelon.
Yeah, close enough. Echelon. Echelon. I mean, maybe it's pronounced echelon.
I gotta figure out what that word means.
Echelon.
Echelon meaning
Echelon front.
a level or rank in an organization. Well, I use it in the right context.
Yeah, it's an organization. Anyways, yeah. So Indians are like number one, and then it's like Taiwanese Americans, and then it's like I can't remember who's below
Oh,
that.
you
And
mean Chinese?
no, Taiwanese, and then it's something
Chinese.
Japanese, and then it's Chinese. So
They're gonna be Chinese soon.
whites are only number 6, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would put probably Chinese, Japanese number one, Indian number two, white number three. Well, we're talking about in the states, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I would say you can't say Oriental anymore. What's the new name? Because apparently Asian is both Indian and like I don't know how
East
to be
Asian,
politically correct anymore. Yeah, East
East
Asian.
Asian maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, whites would probably be number three, and
So you're just
then
saying the collective East Asians would be 2, because the Indian is 1 for median income.
I want to say Oriental so bad. I don't know what else. Yeah, it's like East Asian.
I don't understand why that is like considered a bad. Like I don't understand. I know
I
that
didn't
it
know
is
midget was derogatory. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to say?
little
Is it
person.
is it dwarf? Not that's too long of a word. Come on, like
I know.
there needs to be one word.
I don't know if I think dwarves are accepted. Dwarf is acceptable, but little people is the little person is the, which
That's too
sounds
long.
bad because it's
It's
like
too
you're a
long.
little person, but that's the actual, like, I believe the accepted term, like the okay one.
I was thinking on my. I was supposed to do push-ups last night. I gotta do it today. So I was thinking, like, when I was walking home from the beach this morning, I was like, I probably only have like two friends that I'm close enough to where they actually know where I live. Well, actually, no. Yeah. That actually have been in my home. Um, but then, so they're black. You're white, but I talk to you every week. So we're I don't know we're kind of like a little bit above the level of colleagues. But then I realized I don't have any Asians or I don't have any West Asian or East Asian people that I'm close to. So I need to do something about that, and then I think I'll be set.
And then you can find some women in each category too.
Well, I have Asian family. I have Asian family, um, or East Asian family.
Time to get a West Asian family going.
Mm,
Might as well get a Caucasian family, or like a half Caucasian family going to. Just get all of the races.
that's what I like. Like I want to be. I want to be. I want to have a portfolio.
Yeah, you gotta just it's roll the dice, because
I don't have
I mean, what's
any.
the chances one of your grandkids or your kids are gonna be like a superstar and buy you, like, pay for your retirement and stuff like that? You gotta start setting up that now. I mean, it could also be that they're all deadbeats too. So
I don't.
it's
I have no expectation of my.
you only need one.
I have no expectation of my successors taking care of me when I'm older. If I get older,
Wouldn't that be kind of a funny, like,
I mean
family?
that's the common practice in a lot of cultures, right?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be kind of a funny family photo if you had kids with someone from each race, and then you got them all together for like just a picture with dad photo? You got this just like rainbow in front of you. I don't know. I don't know why I think that would be
They
funny.
would. I mean, they will all still. Well, if you're black, they will all still be considered black.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose. What's the so does the Asian gene, like, because like if a white person and a black person get together, their kids mostly look black, right? Or like light skinned black. But
I thought. I thought. I thought African genes were the most dominant over everything. I thought it trumps everything. Um,
I thought Asian
it,
genes.
in my case, no. My kid is Chinese. But you look at like Tyson
Or
Bedford.
Vietnamese.
Does that sound familiar?
Tyson Befford, no.
And he was a Blasian model for Ralph Lauren.
Oh,
He's
Beckford.
black with slanted eyes, right? So
Oh
like
yeah.
he's obviously black with slanted eyes. Um, but no, like my kid's Chinese. Like I was kind of like scratching my head when he came out. Like, what have you been doing? uh,
You could have a Hispanic wife. You could have like a whole harem of wives, and they're all. I don't know. Just put one in every gene pool. I'm just being dumb, man.
mm, I like Asian culture.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Can be high
They, I
strung.
mean, like they just have a lot of pressure to represent the family name or honor the family name. Like, I think they think about consequences more than other cultures or ethnicities.
Yeah, isn't that part of? Oh God, man, I'm like, oh, what is the name of that? It's not really a
Like
religion,
black
but it
culture
kind of
doesn't.
is.
Negro
Confucianism.
culture, not African culture, but Negro culture, like there is no shame. They could give a damn about honoring the family name at all. I'm not sure about Caribbean. I would assume like Nigerian and probably most countries in Africa, they probably have a strong desire or are highly encouraged to represent the family name or to honor the family name. I could be wrong.
In where? In the
African
Caribbean?
countries,
Oh, in
African
African
countries.
countries.
I'm not sure about the Caribbean.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming there's some of that in white culture, but I don't see it. I don't. I mean, I think there might be expectations, similar expectations around like if someone's like a lawyer, they want their kid to be a lawyer type thing, or if they were like in sports, they want their kids to be in sports or whatever. But that's just because they're interested in those things. So I don't know. But yeah, the whole idea of honoring your family and dishonoring them, I don't really think that's highly prevalent in white culture. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe in Europe, who knows? What those crazy Europeans in Switzerland do, or in Sweden, Switzerland, by the way. But I feel like I'm progressively getting worse at software development.
I was live coding yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that.
I like I like domain modeling. It, it's not really stressful. It's more like a game to me. I don't know
Yeah,
why. I'm weird. It's not until I actually
I
have to
think
start
everyone
like
likes it.
pulling in like third party frameworks and NuGet packages or libraries that then it starts becoming dull. But if I'm just trying to put together what a domain looks like and what are the core operations, like it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Maybe because it's just quick feedback loop. Like it's really just a compiler and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Um, I don't know. I try to do. I mean, I do that domain. I mean, I feel like I always do a pretty good job at it, but I've realized I have a really bad way of explaining it to people. I might not think the same as other people on things, but I don't know. I'm not great at explaining stuff, and I think that'll hold me back from any sort of like more success in the software realm.
This is what I came up for this affiliate domain. So Beach Mobile, an affiliate is someone that because of them you're getting sales and so they need to get a commission. So they register They get status on their registration to see if they've been approved yet. They get to look at their commissions, or maybe I should call that payment history. I don't know, as well as their leads. Hence, um, I actually knew what this meant yesterday when I was coding it. Prospect and the items that are being, yeah. So a vendor is at the beach, and then they find out that someone's interested in some products or services. So that's
Hmm.
a lead. And so maybe that lead doesn't actually become a customer yet. Actually, that should be called prospect, right?
A lead is a prospect, isn't it?
Yeah, but lead doesn't sound right to me. I feel like it's a, what do you call it? Overloaded term. Um, prospect, I don't think it's overloaded, right? It can't be confused, I don't think.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what to give me the difference between those two. What is the difference between a lead and a prospect? I thought a prospect would be like the next level after
I mean,
lead.
you have a sales lead, but that's two words, and that's clear. But I don't want to use two words. I want to use one word.
A lead is an individual or organization that has shown some level of interest in the products and service. A prospect is a lead that has been qualified as fitting your target market and has potential to become a customer.
I like prospect better.
But
So,
in the case of this one, you don't know because it's an affiliate, right? So they're leading stuff to you. It's a lead. You haven't. It could be a dead lead. It could be. I think lead's a better term here. Prospect would be like once you take that lead and you identify them and you say, okay, this is someone I could actually sell to. Unless you're pre-filtering leads down to say with some other information to say, is this an actual prospect?
okay.
I'm guessing that's how I interpreted the definitions, anyways.
All right, I'll take that.
Yeah, because like a lead page is like it brings in is like a landing page or whatever for leads. Like they come in and that's your first part of the funnel, but then there's funnels after. If they get to the next step of the funnel, then they're probably a prospect at
Mm.
that point. But affiliates, they're bringing in leads, and then once they become a prospect, then and then a customer. Yeah, I guess this is how it goes. So,
So here's the part that I got stuck on. Like on Twitter, I posted a screenshot of some code that I wrote, and then someone says, "Oh, your the data type that maps to your result in the case
hmm
that it's an error, that shouldn't be a string. That should be an exception." And he was like, "Using a string is a anti-pattern," and I'm like, "Is it?" And so I tried to like really marinate on what he was saying, and I think I could understand, like, at least with the exception, it provides more context, right? It provides you the call stack, it provides you the top level to low level error messages associated to that context of what went wrong. I get it, but
but
an exception, when you throw an exception, you're giving up control. Um,
yeah,
but
I,
you don't have to throw an exception to return the exception to a client. But if you return the exception, is that still going to have the call stack details in it, or is you only have the call stack details if you throw an exception?
I think it's only if you throw.
Yeah, so, uh, dude, I spent like 15 minutes of my life trying to figure out should it be a string or an exception type, and
Is there?
I guess
So
the
I've.
exception type provides the capacity to expose more details. So maybe he's right.
I mean, I've
You,
created an error type before to that contains a message, but could also hold other. metadata and stuff. Maybe I see. Yeah, I don't know. Exception, like I'm just thinking about it from C sharp land. Like I wouldn't think of capturing and passing back an exception because it's like it's I'd capture the exception, interpret it into something else, and then return that interpreted thing. Because also, like your domain model has no concept of an exception, right?
That's a good
It doesn't
point.
have the concept of a string either. Like if you're talking about a pure now, it does have the concept of a task, like they're doing something and that it's a task that it's going to be done. They know they're going to get a result, and they're going to get a registration receipt or whatever. But yeah, but I guess, is it truly just an error that they're getting then? Like it's something like an internal server error? Like I don't
Yeah.
know. Like I said, I've used an error type before, and then I've created like in C sharp I've created like a static implicit conversion from a exception to an error. But I mean, because the result type, it says it's going to be this or some like non-expected result, right?
Yeah. Why did I do that?
So it's like a processing error kind of a deal, right? Or like a failure. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasted 15 minutes of my life deliberating.
I mean, maybe exceptions, right? I don't know. I'm aware of anything that says like
Well,
it's a
no, I
best
mean, what you
practice or
said is the exception doesn't belong in your business policy because it's not a business term.
yeah,
Now, the implementation details of an error description can be an exception. It could be this, right? But I'd rather have this. I'd rather have an error description, and then it could map to something that's more implementation detail.
yeah. Because I guess you would say if you weren't a software developer and you were like in that domain and you're registering, your registration is either going to be successful with a receipt or it's going to be like a failed registration or whatever for some, an exception might be the reason, but it could be for other reasons, I suppose, too. Things that you've captured or just observed. I don't know.
Gambler says on the JVM Java, you get the stack trace from when the exception is created. So it also works if you return the exception as a regular return value.
I'll check really quick. I'll just go to .NET Fiddle and see what happens if I just instantiate an exception and return it or
I use
and list
exception
it
where
out.
most of where they're most of the time for error values. I don't remember how the CLR behaves for stack traces and exceptions.
Let's see.
Well, I mean, see, I would assume that the CLI pretty much cloned the JVM. And so to me, it would make sense that they would have the same behavior, especially early on in like 2000.
No,
Okay.
no, there is a stack trace when you create it. Well, let me try putting it in a method. So if I create it here and then I return it, I frack this up. All right, let's see here now. Oh, forgot my dude. One thing that I hate is that okay, no, so that's weird.
Create Git
Programming.
repository.
I don't think it does because I created another method and then I put the exception creation in that method, returned returned it and then grabbed the stack trace and put a 2-string out, and it didn't work.
What did it spit out?
It spit out unhandled exception, blah blah blah, at program.main. But so it's literally where you pull the stack trace. I wonder if I.
And the alternative, which I don't like, is it means that every function is going to have a try cat or a try with block if we're talking about F sharp, and you would throw that exception just so that you can realize an exception with a call stack that you can then return to the client. I don't like that
Yeah,
if
but
that's
why do
what's
you?
required
eh,
to provide context.
Yeah, and why do you even need it if you've logged out the context already? You know, I don't know that you would need it. Like, I feel like stack traces are useful if you feel like there's something to like identify where in the code you are, but if you have like appropriate logging put in place, you know where you are in the coding because your logging context is going to tell you.
Well, wouldn't
So,
appropriate logging include the exception?
well, yeah, and if there's an exception, it would capture it and log the exception out at the point of when it happened. So there's really no reason to. So, dude, I have this problem now because I've written a lot of like JavaScript or TypeScript in the last couple months, and writing C sharp. Two things. One, I keep forgetting semicolons now because I don't have to use the semicolons in TypeScript. In fact, like you can, but my like the linter takes them out, so I've just started to get in the habit of not having them. And then two, writing C sharp in VS Code sucks. I absolutely hate it. I look at I don't know what it is.
Why?
Just that
It's
change
a
in the
first class
IDE, like
citizen, though.
I feel like in VS Code I'm like 50% as capable as what I am in like Visual Studio. Like there's something about the way that the layout and the crispness of Visual Studio for C sharp coding, and like the tooling and the button flow and like all my muscle memory is loaded into that. So VS Code, just the syntax highlighting is different. It's like all of the like it's slow. I don't know. It just sucks.
VS Code is slow. Or you're
It's
talking about
slow.
your
It's
productivity
slow
is slow.
for no. I feel like it's slow for figuring out like IntelliSense and just like resolving errors or recognizing errors. And I always have some frickin' problem with like the language server not lining up over. No, it's not a first class citizen. It
I
sucks.
I only use Visual Studio Code when I'm using some archaic language. So, for example, Elm, Idris. Those are the only times that
Yeah.
I've used it.
I mean, it's really good for TypeScript and JavaScript. Like would not want to write those in Visual Studio. It's exceptional in for those things. It sucks for a non-web language. I don't know what it is. I just can't. I can't. I hate it. Like it's enough where I'm just like I just absolutely don't want to write any backend code. Like it's just I have no. It's like every time I sit down and do it, I'm like I just look at it and it's just like it doesn't. It feels way different, and I feel like I don't have any idea what I'm doing, even though I know what I'm doing.
Do you think you're. I'm going to ask a silly question. Would you rather be the developer from 10 years ago or today, currently, as you are?
Um,
I expect you to qualify that question if you don't already know
I
where it's
was
leading to.
okay. So I was a developer 10 years ago. Would I rather go back to then? Uh, so do I know what I know now?
That's part of it.
I mean,
But
if I
also think about the amount of think about the how energetic and how motivated you may have been 10 years ago, the hunger that you had compared to now. Like you're
Yeah,
likely you're more knowledgeable now, but are you still as motivated? Do you still like were you as active in the community? Were you instead of trying to get well, you've been married for a while, but for most people, instead of trying to get girlfriends and trying to ride motorcycles and jump out of helicopters, you rather just write code. Like compared to today, where it's like, no, this is just how I earn my living, and this is cool, but I don't really want to spend my off hours if I don't need to. Like, which person would you rather be right now? What would be more conducive or more what would yield more rewards, taking into consideration the trade off of highly motivated versus highly experienced?
I think I'd rather be highly motivated
Mm.
because it feels like you have, like, I don't know. There's so when you don't know very much, like the whole world's something you can explore. I mean, what once you start to learn enough, it's like, well, this is really similar to this. It's just learning the semantics of that thing. Like if you learn like one service bus, like they're all the same. They all follow the same patterns. It's like, oh well, this one does it handles this pattern like this, and this one handles this pattern like this. Okay, that's cool, but it's like when you get into the meat of actually getting something to work, it's the same basic. You're just utilizing a tool in a different way, but um, when you're inexperienced, it's like, oh, this is magic when you learn something new. It's like, wow, oh, why don't we write all of our code this way or something? I don't know. It's to be wide-eyed and bushy-tailed like that is great. But I wouldn't want to be myself 10 years ago. I wouldn't want to write like any web code 10 years ago compared to what you can do now. Like it's just like it would be painful. Like knowing what I know now and knowing about like the frameworks I know and going back in time and trying to write anything UI related like 10 years ago would suck.
10 years ago,
We're talking
I
2014, so
yeah, 10 years ago, I was more inclined to understand the pain of how something works by writing my own service bus, writing my own whatever platform solution that already exists, only because I would view it as a challenge and I would really want to understand the problem domain better. And
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
the
10 years ago.
toy systems. Yeah.
Now
You're
it's
writing toy
like,
systems all the time, man.
yeah,
Unless you
but
actually get Beach Mobile going again.
um, yeah, but I'm more in love with domain modeling than I am with technology. Like I care about the actual abstract problem than I care about the actual implementation of how to bring everything together uh, using the. I'm sorry, my vocabulary is leaving me. Um, Integration details, but I think another difference, which I'm losing my train of thought, was although I was highly motivated, was 10 years ago, I really didn't understand how to navigate the political spectrum or the political arena like I think I do now. And so I really
Yeah.
didn't have as much as a filter at like design meetings and being very quick to tell my employer, no, that's not how it works at all. This is how you're supposed to like
Yeah.
now now I'm like I think I'm a little bit more careful at how to navigate people's feelings within discussions,
Yeah.
especially when they cut me a check.
I feel like I used to be more like interested in more like I'd speak up more about design ideas and thoughts and stuff like that. I feel like I've slowly got that beat out of me where I realize that I can't communicate what's in my head very well, and I'm setting myself up for heartache if I try to do anything more than just be like a code monkey on things. Like it's because I like even projects that I'm working on now, it's like I see what I see, and I've got feelings and thoughts around it, and it's like I try to communicate those things, and I feel like I just get blank stares, and then inevitably, like in a week or 2 or 3 later, like people go, oh yeah, yeah, okay. But the other thing that I've like really realized is like I want to go down to like the simplest thing possible nowadays for stuff too. Like one of the things that's driving me nuts now is we've got in the code that base that I'm working on, we've got so many projects for like, and we've got them all in one solution. And there's got to be like 20 projects. And every time you add one, you're adding like 6 projects or something like that. And I don't like that. I know you're a fan of like
Like,
segregating by project,
sign me up.
but I hate that because it's like it just adds so much when you're trying to find stuff and put stuff in place, it just adds so much like, and maybe it's just the way that it's organized because it's all like,
Yeah, if it's not vertical slices.
yeah, I think what the problem is that it's not written as domain first, then the slice. It's written as like, or like the like part. So like if you had, let's just say you're doing an e-commerce site, you had like shopping cart dot domain, and then you could group everything by shopping cart so that they're all together
Hmm.
in it.
The
That
end
that
here.
that's okay because then it's really just one step removed from having a folder or like one project with all of those things in folders. Um, but if you have domain and then shopping cart, it's going to be next to domain orders, domain, blah blah, blah, and it just, oh, it's a pain to find anything. It's like you just, I don't know. I guess you could use solution folders to handle that, which might be a decent side thing. But I don't know. I've gotten down to the point where all I want to do is create like a single web API project for any particular service and never
So,
create anything more unless I need it. Like,
this is why I'm a fan of give me a second. This is again why I'm a fan of this right here. Right. And the alternative to
fine,
this
I
is
didn't write
your
that right.
interfaces in within a C sharp solution, right? But they would have to actually like carve out at a domain layer what those operations are going to be, and instead of using function types, they use interfaces, and then you just do like control or shift
Yeah,
F12 to look at the references, and then it's a lot easier to find the code that you're looking for within the interpreter of these operations. But chances are that they don't have a model like that. Why would
yeah.
they?
I wouldn't. I don't. I'm not a huge fan of the like, because so like in C sharp land, they would make that an abstractions class or like an abstractions library. And like I said, I don't see the point. I want to reduce everything down into just like one little like project, all the data and API and the entire hexagonal like thing. Because there's almost no need to have other projects unless you're like,
Okay, hold up. You said one little project. So what would that project be called? If we're talking about affiliate domain, what's the name?
it,
We just
like
call it affiliate.
in the C sharp world,
Sure. Yeah.
like what would I call this project? Um, I mean, I would call it like whatever the domain is or whatever the service is called.
Pick a domain.
Um, oh God. Um, well, let's make a, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a context that's not a capability that's not like just like a CRUD type capability.
Isn't that what
Um,
most projects are?
yeah, but I don't think you should like label services based on CRUD. Like you should think about what capability they're providing. I mean, and it might just be that it's a CRUD service, but um, I mean, I guess you could say like shopping cart's a capability, like the ability to store items. It's a pretty simple domain though, right?
Is it?
I mean, it can be pretty complex if you're tacking on like leads and all that kind of stuff, right? Or like affiliates into it, and
Well,
you're trying to
a
and you're
shopping
trying
cart,
to optimize it, or yeah,
shopping cart can have recommendations
no, that'd be
depending
search.
on how much you
Oh,
want to
on the
evolve it.
items, yeah,
What's
but
that?
that would be a recommendation engine. That would be a
When you
function
when
of
you
your shopping
when you
cart.
get ready to check out, it can have recommendations.
Yeah, but that would be a recommendation service.
All right, so
That's
here's your
a
shopping cart
function of your
solution. Now
shopping
what?
cart. Um, is this? Well, I
Okay.
would have created it as a web API project.
I'm trying to figure out how you would model things.
How I would model things
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen,
in
right?
general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a shopping cart service or a solution. I don't know. I assume you were talking about a
Okay.
service.
Yeah. Okay. So if shopping cart was a web API project, I'd have or like an API project so that I could have controllers in it and actually host it. Which is not how it's set up here. I wouldn't call it API there. I would have a web folder underneath it.
You have to have a web folder. Okay, okay. So hold
So
up.
so it'd be
When
called
you,
shopping cart, and then
okay,
underneath it
add
I'd
a
have a
folder.
folder called web.
Okay.
And now this is one vertical slice, so there's no reason to to like have domain subdomains underneath this because there really isn't. I'd probably have like a core folder,
Under
and then
web,
I would have
your core folder
no
is
no 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 under the root. So at the top level I'd have so web would be like one adapter into it. Core would have my domain and my all of my ports, and then
okay.
I'd have like a probably like a persistence or a data folder or whatever. Just call it data. I mean,
Data or data gateway.
that's data. I don't
Okay.
need it to be complex, multi-word type thing.
Okay.
Although it would be nice
Because
if
to
it
me,
could.
data is just your structures. It's not how you transport. But okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would be like an implementation of some bit in it. So then I guess from there, God, shopping cart's so simple. It's like it'd be nice if there was like
You
an
add, you
aggregate.
remove, you hydrate.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose. So under like core, I'd probably have like a domain folder, and then I'd have well, maybe I would have no, you know what? I wouldn't have a domain folder at this point because this is such a small service. I'd probably just put everything in there at this point. I don't know. It depends on how much I add structure based on like how much I need structure. Um, the core data and web things are that I have an inbound.
So your core
The
is going to
idea
have.
behind it is core. The core is your domain plus your your ports, and then you've got two adapter sets. You've got your outbound data adapter, which is usually going to a database, right? Now it could be that data. I would need some other thing there, like a bus connection or whatever.
When you say
Um,
when you say ports, can you explain?
so like the hexagonal. Have you seen like hexagonal pattern?
Mm-hmm.
So a port is a way to get enter your domain. It's like your boundary to your like inner domain,
Mm-hmm.
and or on either side. So you have inbound ports and you have outbound ports. Um, so a controller, a traditional controller, is in MVC or whatever. That's for an API controller or whatever. That's a an adapter, an HTTP adapter for an inbound port. Um, so there's a bunch of adaptation that gets done there to make it accessible via HTTP. But really, what you're doing is you're mapping from that HTTP endpoint into a and doing some pre-filtering and stuff like that into your domain construct. Um, if you have a service out
And that
to
will go in. That will go in core.
yeah
Okay.
no the controller itself goes in web. The actual
Okay.
the actual like I guess it would be like a transactional script or whatever. If you're doing it that way, would be inside of core. So how I usually do stuff now is say you had a shopping cart controller. I would probably bring in mediator although you wouldn't have to. And then I would create. Let's
That's
just
the NuGet
follow.
package or what?
Let's just follow the whole structure through on like an add item, right? So you start at like your controller, and there'd be like an add item or a post, an HTTP post to put an item or add an item to your cart or whatever, right? And you've got some sort of, let's say, ID about what's in there, blah blah blah. It's an item, and now that item is going to be a DTO, so that
And
will
this
be in
is
your web controller too.
I don't know. This is it would what is a return? It's not a status code. What is something? What do you call?
So if you had create a web project, it'd be a task of you'd probably create a task of a action result of
Yeah, yeah, that was what I was
some
trying to figure
value,
out.
um, or it could just be an action result. And the item itself, I would have probably flagged it as like item DTO, so it's your and it might even make it like a request DTO, whatever. And I'd put that in the same web folder. Like this is the web folder is my HTTP or my API interface, right? I
You
mean,
said
it would be in its own project, but
you said DTO that class or yeah, that would go on core, right?
no, I'd put that in web. So this is web is like my external facing, like I said, adapter. Like it can be whatever it wants to be. Um, it doesn't even need to be a folder or a class. It would just be, yeah, I guess you could just say and then make an item in here rather than
Give me a second.
be just
I'm
internal
forgetting
class
how to
item.
create forgetting how to declare types in C sharp.
Just make internal class.
Isn't it record and
No, you're
then
in a class right now. So
oh
just make
okay.
the class item DTO and call it good. Or the only reason I put item or DTO after it is because it just to separate out so I don't have to have any namespace issues. Call it item DTO. And it might be like I might even
Is
make it
it then
request
this file
DTO.
DTL? I don't know what you're
Yeah. Anyways, so
listen.
no, I just call it item, whatever. I don't know. This is really like and you could even put this in the same controller class. I don't even care. Um Anyways, so that'd be like an inbound. I wouldn't necessarily model this first, by the way, the API first, but I'm just saying like this is how it would be structured. You'd have an item that's coming in, some like external representation of the item um, coming into an add item, and like if I was doing this as a project, I like Mediator because I like to separate out um, things. So I'd actually have like in core then I'd have a port called add item, and it might even be in like a folder called items, whatever. I don't know. Um, which would have an add item class and a handler, and then the handler would use anything in core to complete that, and then yeah,
So your solution would be one library that just has folders and that's in a
yeah.
controller.
And the only and I wouldn't need to like I don't know that it needs to scale even with complexity because like as long as you're as long as you made your vertical slice contextually small enough, you don't ever need to have more than one project. Like you should be able to understand everything within this project.
So so you know what my response would be for the way you set this up, uh, especially when it comes to a team maintaining this and not just you. And a team is going to consist of junior developers as well. Is my experience is whenever you have one library that handles all the responsibilities for a solution, it my experience, especially when you have a team and not an individual, is it is highly likely to not be testable um, over time. which is why I like to separate out libraries, and which would reduce the likelihood, not remove, but reduce the likelihood of having accidental dependencies.
But I would just test. I would just do pure integration tests. I would test everything through the controller. Screw
Okay.
like the only time I really want unit tests is if it's a complex bit of like a complex algorithm that I need to solve for. Like then it's useful in my opinion. But like at at my last gig we had an example is we had a pricing tool called Mass Price, and you would like there were rules about when you would price things and when you would issue a price or whatever. And running that rules engine, because it was complex through a series of having a suite of tests against it, just the rules engine part, that was valuable. But like it's not valuable to like write a freaking test to make sure that if I pass this thing, then this thing happens um in terms of like, oh, this thing passes an argument exception, like throws an argument exception.
So
It's
you
dumb.
said write an integration test. You're talking
Yeah.
about like a, a automated like UI test.
No, no, I would be against the API. It would be an API. You would
Okay.
spin up this API, you would hit the controller endpoint, and then you would verify that the results are correct.
Okay.
It would
Because
go down to the database and everything. Yeah.
I don't want to be the dead horse, but my experience has repeatedly told me that one library teams will force UI dependencies into things that shouldn't have UI dependencies just
Yeah.
because they can.
Well, and I think you're
Which
because you're coming from a WPF. Like this is a web thing. I mean, technically the API is the UI, but it's fairly constrained to that web folder in the way that I would structure this. Um, I don't
okay,
know that I would. I don't know why it like people. Although you get junior people in and they just put shit wherever, I
yeah,
suppose. But that's why the code review process
and
exists.
senior air
Yeah,
quotes, right?
yeah. But the thing is like to me, there's a lot less mental like cognitive overhead in just one little project that you pop open and you're like, oh, and I'm here. I'm in the context.
Yeah, yes, man. This is really another hour's worth of
I know.
discussion because I could battle you on this, and I'm not saying that I have to be right, but what I will say is the following: when it comes to maintainability, I would prefer that a team or a individual out of several teams or several individuals own the module, the
Yeah.
module's maintainability. When you have a single library, I think that's conducive to anybody just going anywhere and making changes in which no one really owns the quality of a module because
No, so now we're getting
anybody
into
can go
like
in there.
team dynamics. So I would
Yeah,
say
but
that
that's
like
what architecture. That's a side effect of architecture.
well
No.
yeah, so in this case I would say an entire team would own if this was a shopping cart, one team would own the shopping cart.
Okay.
And preferably one person would be the primary on the shopping cart and they would know every fucking thing that there is to know about the shopping cart because they're so in tune to it. Like I
Okay.
feel like there's a lot
I
of
get it.
value. I people they try so hard to be like I've seen this happen where they're like, we don't want one person to be the expert in this and nobody understands it. It's like,
I
that's
don't understand that
so
logic either.
valuable. Like, are you not? So you want to make people like the master of nothing. So I mean, and no one's ever going to have any more than like, just like this deep of knowledge on any particular thing. It's like, no, you want somebody who knows the ins and outs of the thing, and they know how to change it rapidly to adjust for situations, and they can tell you realistically how hard what you're asking for is because they know it well enough. Otherwise, it's just
And they're
wild
held
ass guesses.
accountable.
Yeah, and then so they're like, well, what happens if they leave?
Well, you have a backup.
You get another, yeah, you have always a primary, you have a secondary. The secondary becomes the primary, or you hire someone and then they learn that thing over time. And you adjust that in all your project schedules to know that we've got a new person working on this. They need time to get
Yeah.
intimate with it before
I,
they're really gonna be. successful.
I think the issue was the agile movement convinced people that developers are interchangeable.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I suppose maybe that's what it is. It pisses me off though. I just like I want to have like depth on one thing and be like, oh yeah, I know how this is all structured. I can turn on a dime and deliver you code because I know how to do it within the architecture, within the capabilities that it's been accessed. I know all that, but in places where I've done that, I've been fairly successful because I've just like I become the person who knows everything about this. So if you need help, I can just answer questions or whatever. And yeah, I've left, but somebody just comes in and replaces me. They have to spend some time learning the thing. That's not so bad, it's
Yeah,
better than having somebody learn it for 6 months on a project and then leave that
yeah.
project, but still be with the company.
So you convinced me that something that I wouldn't do is just as valuable. I still like proliferating hella libraries, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I there's
you
a world
convinced
where I
me.
might split that into three, right? Like I might not have so if you're gonna have a project or a solution with like how many feature slices in it, right? If you had like five five different like separate APIs that are just part of the solution and it's in a project like that, I'd probably structure it that way. If I had one, if it was the shopping cart solution, I might have shopping cart core, shopping cart data or database or persistence or whatever you want. I might have a shopping cart web. Like I've done that too. And I wouldn't call them shopping cart.web. I'd namespace them that way, but it would be like the web project and the core project. And they would all be under the shopping cart solution.
Mm.
But I don't know that there might be a need for a fourth if you have like an infrastructure or like a, not an infrastructure, like a, if you have like a need for like some sort of like additional library for like just random shit that you're going to plan to use across all three extension methods or something, these helper type functions. But
The other argument, which I could see an easy counter argument against, is portability. So yeah, this is for a web application, but surely as an architect, there's an opportunity as well as a forecast for there to be a mobile version of this, hence a mobile application version of this. Do we really want to bundle everything into a single library? Or are there opportunities to reuse the code if we just isolate the responsibilities of some of these areas so
so you're
that we
talking about alternative. So you're talking about in this case, you would have. Would you actually be deploying your core out to a mobile? Because this is a web API, so it's a
so
different type of interface. I mean, I could see if you had let's just say, okay, let's
okay,
use the
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing here.
you reminded me, yeah.
But let's say that you have a WPF and a console application that use the same thing. Now, there's a world where you just funnel the WPF application through the console app, which is how some things do it. You just trigger the console app and run it. So you build the console app and then you have um, this thing trigger it that way. Use the console executable. Um, believe you can still use those executables as libraries. I might not be right on that. I feel like you can add an executable as a reference. But in that case, yeah, you could take out core and that persistence layer and throw that in their own library. Um, and actually, I don't even. Sometimes the persistence thing isn't even needed. Could be just within the core. But yeah, I mean, you could split those out, and then you'd have two possible inbound adapters to the same core ports. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
like I said, it's a weak argument that I had. So
Yeah, I think it's more or less that what I desire is like to have things as simple as possible because when you get into like five projects for a single like conceptual thing, it just becomes too much. Like to find and
yeah, my beach mobile customer app is like 40 libraries or 40 projects.
Yeah, that's
I
yeah.
mean, it's a big app. Could it be reduced in hindsight? Yeah. Was I learning as I went? Yeah.
I guess it's not a big deal if you're doing a microservice architecture and you're in like an enterprise where you've got enough people to support all of those services, and you have a team that's devoted just to, like courier, blah blah blah, or you've got one just devoted to leads, and or like that's kind of stuff. That would make sense. I mean, you would want to have that kind of separation and the ability to flip services around like that. But
Yeah, well, the
um,
Beach Mobile is a client, right? It's not
yeah,
a back end service. So it had separate libraries that were then partitioned into like N tier, right? Where it had like the catalog of services or products, right? From UI all the way to data gateway. Another one was the user account as a separate project from UI to data gateway. And actually, UI was its own. So each tier was its own project, right? So you have a folder called user account. You have a folder called catalog. You have a folder called I don't know. There's like 10 other subdomains within this customer app, and each subdomain would have like four different projects from UI to view models to data gateway to whatever the other one was. So yeah, I had like 40 projects in that one solution. Um, I could navigate it, but yeah, I wouldn't be sure if someone else could that wasn't the author.
yeah.
And the
Well,
time
I
is nine
suppose
o'clock.
it's yeah, I suppose it's time. You have an
Uh,
interview today, you said?
yeah,
Good luck, I guess. Good luck.
man, it's a
Kill it.
man, it's like an hour and a half drive.
Put
I
on a
think
tie, suit and tie.
I probably will. The Gambler says in some of our products we have code spread over a lot of libraries projects, mostly because the code base runs in many different environments, browser, Node.js, JVM, etc. So the libraries is there to slice the code into pieces to pick what pieces can run in which environment. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, it's been real. This was an interesting chat. And yeah, I guess we'll catch up next Friday.
Yep. Oh, it's my birthday next Friday. Oh, happy belated birthday again, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I dread birthdays. I dread holidays. So
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna have to wake up early on my birthday to talk. Damn.
thanks, Gambler. You don't have to.
No, it's all right. I'll do it. Enjoy our talks. So,
No. All right.
all
Enjoy
right.
your
Yeah.
weekend. See
Yep.
you.
Have a good one. Bye.
See you, Gambler. Bye.